My mother-in-law secretly harvested my entire organic saffron crop to distribute to her neighborhood friends. There is a devastating moment of quiet shock when you look at a piece of land you have painstakingly nurtured for months, only to realize someone under your own roof has completely stripped it bare for their own social vanity. For nearly 8 months, I spent every single morning inside my specialized backyard greenhouse, carefully balancing the soil acidity, monitoring moisture levels, and investing thousands of dollars of my independent savings to cultivate a rare premium batch of organic autumn saffron. With a commercial organic spice distributor scheduled to arrive at our property in less than 24 hours to purchase the harvest for a substantial contract, my small horticultural business was finally about to achieve its major breakthrough. But yesterday morning, when I stepped inside the glass enclosure, the rows of vibrant purple crocus flowers were gone, replaced by clipped stems and empty soil. My husband's mother, Pearl, had quietly accessed the greenhouse at dawn with a pair of gardening shears, harvested the entire high-value crop, and packaged it into decorative jars to distribute as free luxury gifts to her neighborhood social club members, just to elevate her personal status. She believed my commercial crop was just a backyard gardening hobby she had every right to raid, but she completely underestimated how a professional cultivator protects her legal contracts and her livelihood. My name is Georgia. I am 32 years old, and I am a licensed artisanal horticulturalist specializing in high-value, organic spice cultivation. My professional world is governed by precision, patience, and rigorous environmental compliance. For the last 3 years, I have operated a small boutique agricultural brand called Crocus Gold directly from a custom, climate-controlled greenhouse constructed on the half-acre parcel behind our suburban home. Saffron cultivation is one of the most meticulous agricultural processes in the world. It requires harvesting the delicate, vivid red stigmas of the Crocus sativus flower entirely by hand during a very narrow autumn blooming window. Because my brand focuses strictly on zero-chemical, premium-grade organic certification, a high-end regional organic spice distributor had recently offered me a formal commercial contract to purchase my entire seasonal yield. My domestic life, however, lacked the careful balance of my greenhouse. My husband, Bennett, and I have been married for 4 years. 6 months ago, Bennett's mother, Pearl, relocated to our neighborhood, purchasing a home just 3 streets away. Pearl is an intensely status-conscious woman who places immense value on appearance, neighborhood standing, and country club politics. To Pearl, a legitimate business requires a corporate building and a traditional management title. My specialized agricultural enterprise was something she consistently referred to as Georgia's Little Backyard Flower Project. During a family dinner on our patio in early October, Pearl watched through the glass windows as the automated misting system activated inside the greenhouse. She swirled her iced tea, her eyes tracking the vibrant purple blooms visible under the specialized LED grow lights. "Georgia, those purple flowers really do look lovely from the patio," Pearl remarked, her tone carrying a familiar edge of polite condescension. "The ladies from my weekly garden committee are hosting our annual charity luncheon next week. I was thinking it would look incredibly elegant if you clipped a few hundred of those blooms so I could use them as decorative table centerpieces. It would really show the neighborhood how festive our family is." I set my fork down, maintaining a calm, professional, and firm tone. "Pearl, those aren't decorative garden flowers. That is a commercial crop of organic saffron. The blooming cycle is extremely time-sensitive, and the entire yield is legally committed to an organic distributor who is arriving next week to verify the harvest weight for our contract. Cannot alter the yield or clip the blooms for decorations." Pearl's expression stiffened, her posture turning rigid as she looked toward Bennett. "Surely a few backyard flowers aren't more important than supporting your mother-in-law's community standing, Bennett. It's just a hobby, after all." Bennett looked uncomfortable, attempting to neutralize the tension by offering to buy pearl silk flowers from a local craft store for her luncheon. Pearl remained silent for the rest of the evening, but her eyes kept drifting back toward the greenhouse. I believed she simply lacked an understanding of agricultural economics, but I completely underestimated the depth of her social entitlement. The logistical nightmare unfolded yesterday morning at precisely 6:30 a.m. The commercial spice distributor was scheduled to arrive at our property at 9 a.m. today to inspect the crop, oversee the final extraction process, and finalize the payment routing for our contract. I woke up early, prepared my sterile harvest trays, and walked down the gravel path toward the greenhouse to perform my routine morning humidity check. The moment I unlocked the heavy glass door, the familiar scent of the blooming crop was completely gone, replaced by the sharp odor of crushed green stems. I stepped inside and a cold wave of absolute shock washed over me. The long, raised cultivation beds that had been filled with thousands of vibrant purple crocus flowers 48 hours ago were completely barren. The delicate flowers had been haphazardly clipped down to the soil line. There were no red stigmas left, no petals, and no harvestable material. The entire greenhouse had been completely cleared out. My heart hammered against my ribs as I looked down at the concrete walkway. Dropped near the corner exit was a small, gold-embossed gift tag that read, "With compliments from Pearl's Garden Selection." I pulled out my phone, bypassed our standard household communication, and called Pearl directly. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice sounding exceptionally cheerful and bright. "Pearl, I am standing inside my greenhouse," I said, my voice vibrating with a dangerous level intensity. "My entire saffron crop has been cut down. Where is my harvest?" "Oh, good morning, Georgia," Pearl responded smoothly, completely unbothered. "I decided to save you the trouble of managing all that clutter. My garden committee luncheon is today, and I wanted to do something truly spectacular. I came over with my spare property key at dawn, while you and Bennett were asleep, harvested the flowers, and brought them over to my house. The ladies and I have spent the last 2 hours putting the red spice threads into beautiful little glass jars with custom ribbons. They make the most wonderful, authentic organic gifts for the Neighborhood Association Board. Everyone is absolutely thrilled by my generosity." "Pearl, that was a commercial crop valued at thousands of dollars under a binding corporate contract," I said, walking out of the greenhouse, my eyes fixed on my car keys. "You committed unauthorized entry on my business property and destroyed my commercial inventory. I am coming over to your house right now." "Don't be dramatic, Georgia," Pearl scoffed, her tone turning dismissive. "They are just backyard plants. I am your mother-in-law, and I am sharing our family's abundance with the community. It looks wonderful for Bennett's standing in the neighborhood. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to finish setting up the luncheon tables." She hung up the phone. I stood in the driveway, realizing that Pearl truly believed her social prestige gave her absolute authority to liquidate my professional work. She thought because we were family, there would be no formal consequences for her actions. But she was about to learn exactly how a business owner handles a total breach of asset security. I did not drive to Pearl's house to engage in a shouting match, and I did not let panic dictate my actions. Instead, I walked into my home office, opened my security system dashboard, and downloaded the high-definition surveillance footage from the 2 cameras monitoring the greenhouse perimeter. The footage was clear and undeniable. At 5:14 a.m., Pearl had walked down our side path carrying 3 large plastic storage bins and a pair of professional loppers. The video clearly captured her unlocking the greenhouse door using the emergency key we kept in the porch lockbox, filling the bins with my commercial crop and loading them into the trunk of her sedan before driving away. With the video files secured on a cloud drive, I called the regional director of the organic spice distribution company who was holding my contract. I explained the situation with absolute professional transparency. "This is Georgia from Crocus Gold," I stated clearly. "I need to file an immediate emergency inventory compromise report. My production facility experienced an unauthorized harvest by a third party this morning, resulting in a temporary loss of the physical yield. However, I have full video documentation tracking the location of the raw materials, and the crop remains within a 3-mile radius of the cultivation site." The director's tone turned serious but highly cooperative. "Georgia, under our organic contract compliance guidelines, if the raw materials are compromised or processed outside of a certified, sterile environment before our inspector arrives, the organic certification for this batch is technically void. However, if the inventory is recovered or assessed before distribution to the public, we can issue an administrative freeze rather than a total contract cancellation. I am executing the recovery process right now," I replied. I printed out 3 copies of my active business registration, the signed commercial distribution contract showing the exact financial value of the saffron crop, and the digital logs of the security footage. I placed the documents into a professional portfolio, walked out to my car, and drove straight to Pearl's house. Bennett met me in the driveway, having rushed over from his office after receiving a brief text from me outlining the situation. "Georgia, please let me talk to her," Bennett said, his face pale as he looked at the portfolio in my hand. She didn't understand the legal weight of what she was doing. "We can just pay the distributor out of our savings." "No, Bennett," I said, looking directly at my husband. "Your mother didn't make a mistake. She chose to compromise my business to buy popularity with her neighbors. Your savings will not cover a commercial contract breach, and I am not bankrupting my brand to protect her vanity. I walked up the front steps and opened the door, stepping directly into the middle of Pearl's Country Club charity luncheon. The living room and dining area of Pearl's home were filled with approximately 20 women from the local neighborhood association. The tables were covered in white linen, and at the center of each table sat a beautifully arranged vase of my purple crocus flowers. On a side display table stood 25 small, decorative glass jars filled with the delicate red saffron stigmas, each adorned with a gold ribbon and Pearl's personalized gift tag. Pearl was standing near the display, holding a glass of sparkling water, soaking in the compliments of the neighborhood board members. "Oh, it's nothing vibrant." "Really?" Pearl was saying with an airy laugh. "I just thought our local community deserved something truly authentic from our family estate." "Pearl," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter of the room with absolute clinical authority. The room instantly fell silent as 20 guests turned to look at me. Bennett stood just behind me in the doorway, his expression deeply strained. Pearl's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, her eyes darting to the portfolio in my hand before she quickly recovered her aristocratic composure. "Georgia, dear, you're just in time for the luncheon," Pearl said smoothly, attempting to guide me toward the kitchen. "Let's go into the back room and get you a beverage." "I am not here for lunch, Pearl," I said, remaining exactly where I was, ensuring every guest could hear every word. "I am here to recover the commercial inventory of Crocus Gold LLC. The purple flowers on these tables and the spice threads in those jars are legally registered commercial assets under an active corporate distribution contract." Pearl's face turned an angry crimson, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper as she stepped closer. "How dare you cause a scene in front of my guests, Georgia? I told you these are backyard plants. You are embarrassing this family. You embarrassed yourself the moment you bypassed my property security at 5:14 a.m. to misappropriate commercial goods," I replied, opening the portfolio and placing the printed security screenshots and the distribution contract directly onto the main display table, right next to her decorative jars. The guests leaned in, their eyes widening as they saw the high-definition security images of Pearl loading the stolen plastic bins into her trunk in the pre-dawn darkness, alongside the official contract showing a valuation of thousands of dollars. "This contract outlines the legal value of the crop you harvested without authorization," I announced to the room, "because these materials were extracted without sterile protocol. The organic certification has been compromised, Pearl. You have exactly 10 minutes to pack every single jar and every single flower back into my storage bins, or I will hand this file and the underlying video metadata directly to our corporate legal counsel and the local authorities for civil asset conversion." The social fallout in Pearl's living room was instantaneous. The neighborhood association board members, realizing they were currently holding documented commercial property, quickly set their gift jars back onto the table, their expressions turning from admiration to deep embarrassment. Within 5 minutes, the guests began quietly gathering their purses and exiting the house, leaving Pearl standing entirely alone amidst her ruined luncheon, with her social standing completely shattered in front of the very people she sought to impress. Pearl's defensive arrogance entirely evaporated. She wept openly as Bennett, looking completely numb, helped her pack the decorative jars and the clipped flowers back into my commercial bins. "I was just trying to do something nice for the committee," Pearl sobbed, her hands shaking as she handed over the final jar of saffron. "You have completely ruined my reputation in this neighborhood, Georgia." "Your choices ruined your reputation, Pearl," I said, lifting the heavy storage bins. "You viewed my career as a dispensable hobby because it didn't fit your traditional narrative of status. You crossed a legal boundary, and today, the system held you accountable." We returned to the greenhouse at 7:30 p.m. While the physical flowers were ruined for the premium fresh market contract, my distributor arrived the following morning to assess the salvaged material. Because I had maintained immaculate documentation and secured the inventory before it could be distributed or altered further, the corporate compliance team agreed to process the recovered saffron under a secondary, commercial-grade extraction clause rather than canceling the partnership entirely. The contract was saved, but the domestic structure of our family shifted permanently. Bennett, recognizing that his mother's actions were rooted in a deep, toxic disregard for our boundaries, made a definitive choice. He returned Pearl's spare key to her house and informed her that she was placed on a strict, long-term communication restriction until she completed a formal, independent financial repayment plan for the compromised value of the crop. It has been 6 months since the morning the greenhouse was stripped bare, and our lives have entered a chapter of profound security, clarity, and beautiful, independent growth. My boutique brand, Crocus Gold, has successfully transitioned into its second major cultivation cycle. With the revenue secured from the modified distributor contract, I installed an advanced biometric access control system on the greenhouse doors, completely protecting the facility from any unauthorized physical entry. The upcoming spring harvest is on track to double our previous yield, and our brand's reputation within the artisanal agricultural community remains completely unblemished. As for Pearl, the consequences of her vanity were absolute. The Neighborhood Association Garden Committee quietly removed her from her leadership track following the public documentation of the harvest incident. She was forced to sell her home nearby and relocate to a smaller community 2 hours away, as she could no longer face the social circles she had tried so desperately to manipulate. Yesterday evening, as the autumn sun began to set, I stood inside the greenhouse, watching the new rows of green crocus shoots breaking through the rich, dark soil. The air was perfectly warm, humid, and filled with the quiet promise of future success. Bennett walked down the path, sliding his arms around my waist and looking at the thriving beds. "The new crop looks incredible, Georgia," he said softly, his voice filled with genuine pride. "It looks exactly like what happens when a boundary is properly protected," I smiled, leaning back against him. "I lost a relationship with a manipulative relative who chose deception, but I protected my business, my intellect, and my family's true financial foundation. True respect doesn't demand that you sacrifice your hard work to fuel someone else's ego. True respect honors the boundaries that allow you to grow. Our perimeter is completely secure. Our contracts are stable, and the story of our success is being written beautifully, independently and exclusively by us."